An interesting week of college football, slated with interesting games, has come to a close. Now we enter rivalry week. There was no video on Friday on this channel because I was sick, as you can probably tell in my voice. That is also the reason why this video is going to be kept short and sweet. But I'm back today. If you aren't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And now, with the intro out of the way, I'd like to say hello and welcome to the JSA Studio. I'm your host, as always, Nathan, and today we're going to be recapping Week 12 of college football. We're going to go ahead and start with this Michigan versus Maryland game. This game was closer than I anticipated it to be. I didn't think it would be a blowout by any means, but I didn't particularly think Michigan would flat out and straight up struggle as much as they did in this game. And I dare say, if Maryland had competent quarterback play, they probably would have won this game by multiple touchdowns. Tulila Tagovailoa is an extraordinarily physically talented player who, when he's on, is on, and when he is off, is the worst quarterback I've ever seen in my entire life. Both of his interceptions to Mike Sanderstill this game are two of the worst passes I've ever seen thrown in my entire life. And there were several other times throughout this whole game that he just missed throws or made absolutely horrible decisions with the football. I think Maryland next year might be looking at a serious case of addition by subtraction with whoever their next quarterback is going to be. As for Michigan, the big story was obviously that J.J. McCarthy struggled very much in this game. And I don't know where this narrative came from that he struggled against Penn State. The guy went 7 of 8 for 60 yards. I don't know how that's struggling. Like, if that was his first quarter stats, we wouldn't say he was struggling. They just literally did not throw the ball past the middle point in the second quarter. That doesn't mean that he struggled. And that also doesn't mean that Michigan doesn't trust him to throw the football. What it means is that Michigan didn't think Penn State was capable of moving the ball on their defense. So they said, we're not going to blow it by throwing an interception or an incompletion and getting behind the chains on first or second down, because that would give Penn State some momentum. And Penn State never had momentum in that game past the middle of the second quarter. It was all on Michigan's side. That being said, Michigan defensively did show some weaknesses that we hadn't particularly seen so far this year. And I think Maryland, just like in 2018 and 2019, might have given Ohio State a pretty good idea of how to attack this defense. So we'll see if that's true in the game this week, but that's all I have on Michigan versus Maryland. Washington versus Oregon State. What a game. This was a very fun game to watch between two programs on the rise. This felt like a playoff game. I know that sounds weird because Oregon State came in with 2 losses, but this Oregon State team is not the same Oregon State team that lost those 2 games, especially to Washington State. Looking back on it, that's just an absolutely horrible loss for Oregon State, and if they had won that game, they probably would have been ranked comfortably inside the top 10 and also had a real chance at making the playoffs had they won this game. From the Washington side of this, I will say Michael Penix did enough to keep his Heisman candidacy alive. However, I think he's firmly in 3rd place behind Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix right now, simply because those 2 guys have been putting up otherworldly numbers the past 2 weeks, and the narratives are on the side for both of those players as well. Washington secured a spot in the Pac-12 championship game with this win here. If Oregon State falls to Oregon next week, that is going to be the rematch in the Pac-12 championship game, will be between Washington and Oregon. The only other team that is alive is Arizona, funnily enough. If they beat Arizona State and Oregon State beats Oregon, then it will be Arizona versus Washington in the Pac-12 championship game, I believe. That being said, when it comes to Oregon State, you're kind of playing with house money at this point in the year, in my opinion. And this last game here, it's just a rivalry game, and you don't really have a chance to win anything. And I actually think that helps you because there is now no pressure on your end of this. You're just playing Oregon to beat Oregon. And that's something that we'll be talking about more on Friday. But when it comes to this game, I think you successfully proved to me and to yourselves that you're capable of playing with just about anybody in the entire country as a football program. I think you are team-wise set up very well for next year. I believe DJ Uyunglele has his COVID extra year of eligibility left. I hope he returns because I think you're returning the vast majority of your starters as well. So this could be a serious team to watch out, assuming you can get your conference sort of thing figured out. Last game we're going to talk about here is Texas at Iowa State. And I really just wanted to talk about this because Texas did kind of struggle a little bit in this game, especially at the beginning. They sort of pulled away, and this game could have gotten a little bit more out of hand than it did. But I think Quinn Ewers is still knocking off the dust a little bit. But I really want to talk about this game because of the Friday matchup against Texas Tech, because that is the mother of all trap games for Texas. Texas Tech is going to be extraordinarily motivated in that game, and Texas cannot afford to slip up one bit. Like, if you're Texas, your path to the playoff is extraordinarily simple. Win out, and you're almost certainly in, because Michigan plays Ohio State, and Georgia and Alabama are on a collision course, and seemingly Oregon and Washington are on a collision course. And if they aren't on a collision course, then it's because Oregon lost to Oregon State, which means you're going to move ahead of them anyway. All you need to happen is for Florida State to lose a game, and you're in. And as we're going to talk about in the next segment, with the injury to Jordan Travis, I think that's probably fairly likely to happen. So Texas, just keep your head down, deal with business appropriately, beat Texas Tech, beat whoever you play in the Big 12 championship game. Jordan Travis and Florida State, that's just the worst thing that can ever happen to anybody ever. And Florida State has now gone from legitimate national title contender to Mickey Mouse team that if they manage to win their next two games, they're going to get just obliterated in the playoffs probably. Because this was already a team that had some significant holes in it that were kind of being masked by a not great conference in the ACC. But 11 wins is still a great accomplishment for this team. And if they manage to beat Florida this week, 12-0 is an extraordinary accomplishment. Even if they manage to win the ACC still, that's incredible. But I don't particularly see a way where you're going to win a playoff game against this current field of playoff teams without Jordan Travis. But the future of the program is still on very solid grounds. I'm not sure if next year is going to be kind of a year like this year, or if it's going to be a little bit of a step back, and then the year after that, you're kind of gunning up and loading for everything and going for it again. But Mike Norvell 100% has this program going in the right direction once again. Now we're going to jump into my power rankings here, and I'm not doing a top 15 or a top 25 anymore. There's no real point. These videos come out on Monday. The college football playoff comes out on Tuesday. I'm just going to do my top 10 power rankings. And this is, once again, not necessarily who I think are the teams that would win in a head-to-head matchup versus everybody. These are a ranking of who I believe are the best football teams in the country and nothing else. Not necessarily just because I have Texas ranked ahead of Louisville doesn't mean that I don't think Louisville could beat Texas or Missouri or Michigan, etc. All that being said, at number 10, I have Florida State. At number 9, I have Louisville in from unranked. At number 8, I have Missouri moving up 2 spots. At number 7, I have Texas moving up 2 spots. And at number 6, I have Michigan moving up 2 spots. Florida State falls 4 spots from number 6 because of the injury to Jordan Travis. And I do think Florida State is now very likely to lose in the ACC championship game. I also think Florida has a decent chance to beat Florida State this year as well, because that has a good chance to be a program building win for Billy Napier, and to get bowl eligible, that would just be a massive victory for Billy Napier in Florida. I've got Louisville at number 9, the surprise team of this year. That is a legitimate top 10 football team. That's not like they've had an easy schedule. That's a really sound and really good football team. At number 8, you have Missouri. They're the only team so far this year that's given Georgia any kind of struggle or really just had life against Georgia outside of Auburn, which was a rivalry game, so that doesn't particularly count in my opinion. Also, they hadn't really unleashed Carson Beck onto the world quite yet, so that, looking back on it, I don't think that's as big of a deal as perhaps some people made it out to be at the time, including myself. Texas at number 7, like I said earlier, they just got to handle their business and do what they do. Michigan at number 6. This team, to me, just kind of struggles to throw the football, and I think part of that is J.J. McCarthy is not playing like the first-round pick people are billing him as, especially the past 3 weeks, but even before then, he wasn't doing it, and he has not played really a defense outside of Penn State that had a pulse, and he didn't throw the ball against Penn State. So we have no clue if J.J. McCarthy is an actual good quarterback or not. And if I had that belief in my core that he was actually a first-round quarterback and not just a first-round athlete for the quarterback position, which he unquestionably is, then I might have Michigan a little bit higher, except for I don't really think they would crack past 5, even in that scenario, because he doesn't have weapons to throw the ball to, even if he was playing at an elite level. And a perfect example of that, without Roman Wilson, his only draftable caliber wide receiver, the passing attack basically fell apart completely this past week. So I am very concerned about that as a Michigan fan heading into Ohio State. At number 5, I have Washington moving up 2 spots. At number 4, I have Alabama moving up 1 spot. At number 3, I have Ohio State moving up 1 spot. And at number 2, I have Oregon moving up spot, with Georgia retaining the 1 spot. If you watched the past few power ranking videos that I did, there was nobody at number 2, if you're wondering how the numbers worked, because there is that big of a gap between Georgia and everybody else. And I still believe that, but it's probably time to end that bit. So let's start here with Washington at number 5. And I really like this team. This is a team that can play defense when they need to. They run the ball effectively, and they might have the best passing attack in the entire country. They are a legitimate team that can beat anybody in college football with a Heisman caliber quarterback. At number 4, Alabama. They're kind of putting everything together right now. They're getting hot at the same time. Jalen Milroe is improving every single week. He is no longer the same quarterback that played against Texas and effectively lost them that football game with his inability to make plays. And Tommy Rees is also not the same caliber of play caller. He's kind of figured out how to call plays for this offense at Alabama now. So I think Alabama is a tremendously good football team. At number 3, I have Ohio State, they have probably the best defense in the country, in my opinion. And on offense, they have two unstoppable forces in Marvin Harrison Jr. and Travion Henderson. Now, the offense has shown some struggles, but that was mainly early on in the season. Pretty much since Notre Dame, they've gotten to the mid-20s in every single game. And with the caliber of defense that they have, even if they were to go against high quality football teams like Washington or Alabama, I think that probably wins the game, because I don't particularly think there's a defense in the country that can stop Ohio State from scoring somewhere between 20 and 30 points. Right now at number 2, I have Oregon, and I think they are the only team in the country that has better than a puncher's chance against Georgia. They have the high-level quarterback play. They have an explosive run game. They have a great to elite caliber offensive line, and they have a phenomenal defensive mind as their head coach, and they would be probably very motivated to be able to win that game for Dan Lanning as a former assistant under Kirby Smart. And at number 1, we have Georgia. They are miles ahead of everybody not named Oregon, in my opinion, and a few hundred feet ahead of Oregon still. But that's just me, and what do I know? I'm just some asshole on the internet giving you his opinion. So that is all that I have for you today. Go ahead and like if you liked the video, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and if you have anything to say, or especially if you disagreed with me, go ahead and leave a comment down in the comment section below. I'll see you next time.